Today, we'll introduce a beautiful and complex religion that is found primarily in Brazil with a number of elements derived from African cultures, Candomble. Candomble has as many as 2 million followers, though it is true that Candomble and other African-derived religious participants are under 5% of the population. This fails to show that many Brazilians who are not initiates but who may visit a practitioner like a healer for helping with challenges in life. Candomble has also been practiced in small numbers in other Latin American countries, including Argentina, Venezuela, Colombia, and Uruguay. Although this is one of the most popular religions in Brazil, you probably have little knowledge about it, not only because of its limited exposure to the society, but also because of the level of secrecy of their traditions after being an underground religion for so many years. Today, we'll unveil why this Afro-Brazilian religion is such an interesting window to the past and present of Brazil. Africans were transported to Brazil by the Portuguese between the 16th and 19th centuries by means of the slave trade. As seen in this picture that portrays African slaves brought into Brazil near the 1830s, Africans were in groups connecting with each other. Indeed, in the segregated communities of Brazil, Black people met during Catholic fraternities, and they used these opportunities for Candomble worship and religious feasts. Many of them continued to teach their own beliefs from the Yoruba, Bantu, and Fon traditions. During these joint sessions, slaves gathered and planned rebellions against their masters. And Candomble was a way of connecting with other Africans and Brazilians and seeking self-determination at the same time. Many Africans from Bantu found a shared system of worship with Brazil's indigenous people, and through this connection, they relearned ancestor worship. However, it is very unfortunate that some beliefs were entirely eradicated shortly after their arrival, because Christians and slave owners forced them to convert into Christianity to fulfill their moral and religious obligations. As you can see in this drawing of the temple, it seems very oblique and hidden, further demonstrating the oppression of this religion by the Christians. Now we will show a video to further explain the secrecy of the religion and the reason behind it.
Candomblé was persecuted by the police and the religious authorities in Brazil, so anything that went against it, was considered savage or witchcraft and had to be, just exterminated.
In the temple's design, you can still see how Candomblé followers once disguised their traditions from authorities.
For instance, in this altar here, it used to be, in the old days, it used to be full of Catholic saints, and the orishas, there's a door behind the altar, and the orishas used to be hidden inside. Okay,
so
the Orisha shrines, they used to be hidden inside in the shelves, because when the police would come to check what people were doing here, if they were playing drums and doing African rituals, they would be praying to the Catholic saints.
Candomble combines ritual practices from West and Central African sources with elements developed in the New World matrix of slavery. The religion emerged in late 18th and 19th century northeastern Brazil, particularly around the port city of Salvador, Bahia. Brazil was the last country in the world to abolish slavery of the 3.6 million Africans shipped there. The first arrivals from 1570 came from the Congo, Angola, and Mozambique, and these people worshiped ancestral spirits. Some slaves managed to escape and formed their own communities. They came into contact with native Brazilian Indian elders, receiving both Indian and African spirits, and shared their knowledge and beliefs. In the 18th century, because of a smallpox plague in Angola, slaves from Nigeria, Benin, and Togo were brought into Brazil, adding more African cultures to the mixing pot of Brazil. Candomblé came from Yoruba, Fon, and Bantu traditions. The JJ Nago Candomblé is based on Yoruba and Fon tradition, whereas Angola, Congo, and Caboclo forms of Candomblé are based on diverse Bantu and Brazilian sources. The Yorubas originated from Ile-Ife, Roses, and became quite popular by their trading with the Portuguese. A significant percentage of African enslaved during the transatlantic slave trade in the Americas managed to maintain the Yoruba spiritual religion. Some of the Candomblé ceremony traditions came from Fon. For example, drums are used in some ceremonies for a special meaning. Candomblé people worship the ancestors strongly, and this tradition came from the Bantu people. Candomblé celebrates the ancestral spirits of the indigenous people of Brazil too. According to slave voyages, slave trade in Brazil started in 1560 and ended in 1850. That is almost 300 years of continuous slave trade. The slave trade was the foundation of Brazil's economy. Approximately 3.6 million total slaves were traded into Brazil. For overseas slave trades, About 5.3 million individuals boarded, and only 4.7 million individuals survived the ocean trip. The survival rate is 87.961%. Today, Brazil is the largest country with the Africa diaspora population. Brazil has an estimated 55.9 million people of African descent.
As a racially diverse nation, how does Candomblé synthesize different religious beliefs? Practitioners of Candomblé believe in one all-powerful god called Olodumare, who has a messenger god Ixu. This is very interesting because we see similarities between these and the Christian god and Catholic saints, especially since Candomblé practitioners worship their gods behind the guise of Christian saints. Olodumare is served by lesser deities. These deities are called orixas. Orixas are a link between the spiritual world and the world of humans. Just as how this picture illustrates, each orixa represents a certain force in nature and is associated with certain foods, colors, animals, or days of the week. A person's character or personality is also strongly linked to their orixa. There's no concept of good or evil, there's only individual destiny. Candomblé believers also value communication with their ancestors because they believe that their ancestors have the power to affect the lives of the living people. Music and dance are also important parts of Candomblé ceremonies. Practitioners of this faith believe that congregations involving music and dance allows the integration of spirits and also creates a sense of community. As suggested by the common Brazilian saying, if one does not come due to love, one comes due to pain. Indeed, when slaves from Angola, Congo, and Mozambique who worshipped ancestral spirits came into contact with Brazilian indigenous people, they had lots of joint sessions sharing knowledges about supernatural aspects of curing rituals and illnesses, such as smallpox. And many of the religious rituals are strategies for maintaining physical, mental, or social well-being. Candomblé is a force that increased the recovery of the cultural identities that were stripped from African Brazilians due to the slave trade. The idea of orixas allowed them to have power over their individual identities, and musical ceremonies allow them to have a sense of community and unity against forces of assimilation and oppression. In the 1970s, the law that required police permission to hold public ceremonies was banned, which to some extent relieved oppression and abuse of those who practice candomblé. However, many ceremonies still remain as secrets today, and this sense of concealment reveals the history of oppression of diverse religions and the desire of Afro-Latinos to preserve their own identities. While the Catholic Church attacked their temples and tried to convert more people to Christianity in the past, Afro-Brazilians have long fought to resist their invisibility in a country of racial democracy through religious gatherings. It is the form of empowerment and recovery to regain self-determination and cultural identity by connection and integration. As the world moves forward, more people should recognize their cultures and efforts to overcome legacy of slavery and appreciate their quote-unquote dance in honor of the gods.